Hi, I just wanted to say a few things about this DVD and about Joe Gouviea in particular, who's a very dear friend. I haven't seen Joe now in 7 or 8 years, but has to be 20-odd years ago, I bumped into him as a young guy. He was a poetry fanatic. He was down here in Sarasota, and the first thing I really noticed about him was that he was a kind of innocent, and then the second thing is that he was a little crazy, and the third thing is that he knew what good poetry was. And at the time, I was just taking off into an oral poetry, which even poets keep telling me is not poetry, but I can assure you it is. I have enough books of written poetry, prize-winning poetry behind me to know what that is. But Joe not only understood the written poetry, but also understood what we were trying to do in a version of ancient pre-literate antiphonal poetry called Soul Speak, which we then went on to make albums of, both in terms of the visual and in the oral way. But Joe picked it up right away, and that's the kind of taste that says this kid's going to be good. But I don't know what happened to Joe. He seemed to drift around for a while. He was in and out of things, and I went up to see him a couple of times at the Cape there, you know, and I didn't know. He had the taste. He was a born poet. He was like Robert Burns. You could tell that he had the fire in him. But his poetry didn't seem to be blossoming commensurate with what his talent was. And then about 10 years ago, everything exploded. He became the most fabulous performance poet. And I know good performance poets because I work with Joan Adley, who I think is one of the best, or if not the best, performance poet there is. And she doesn't do it by jumping up and down either. She does it by coming from the heart of the soul, just like Joe does, you know. There's no tricks in what Joe does. What you hear is Joe. You get Joe's soul. And then I saw his written poetry, which I hadn't seen for 7 or 8 years, and it had made an enormous jump. I was so happy for him. And then all of the accolades started to come in for him. He had that book about the motorcycle poetry, which was great, and he got involved in the Cape Cod scene. But he was going beyond that. His poetry was good, and poets who were in the Cape, like Mary Baraka, you know, and some others, you know, recognized him as the real thing. It's something that I had seen 20 years ago. But somehow it took him a little while to blossom. But once he did it with a roar. And now to hear that he's fighting cancer at such a young age, and to have such a bright soul be dimmed, I hope it's only for a short while, really saddens me. So I put together 3 poems I had done many years ago, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago, just listening to Joe. We had recorded him when he came down. We had a little studio here, Soul Speak Studio, and we got him up, and we didn't get a chance to do a video recording of him that was worth anything, but we did some audio recordings, and I just liked them over the years. And one night I was sitting here, and I started to see if I could lip-sync one of them too, just having some fun listening to him. And then I lip-synced another one about 4 or 5 months later, and then I got some fractals out, which I used for his poem called Daughter, and I sent it to Joe. I never really heard whether he liked them or not. Some people get pissed when you do that kind of thing, you know, but I thought it was the ultimate praise, you know. Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, and I loved what Joe was doing, and I love becoming him for a short time in some of those great performance poems. I've also included at the end of this a little poem that I hope Joe likes, and it's When You're Lost. And Joe's at a time now that he's lost, no matter what his courage is and his love of life. This is the kind of hits that you take when you go down and you have to come back up kind of slowly. And that happened to me, I guess 7 or 8 years ago. I was in Alamos, Mexico, and I was trying to find my way. And of course, part of finding your way is finding yourself. This poem is about that. It's one of the first dream stories I made. It was so magical in its making. I can't tell you how I put it together, but it kind of assembled itself with the help of a local photographer called La Robina, who did the actual photography, you know, just followed me around town. And when I looked at the pictures, the poem poured out of me. And one take, and that was it. You know, We don't erase anything in Soul Speak, just do it once. So that poem's for Joe. I know he'll recognize it. He has the taste to recognize it, and he'll go right to the soul of it. And Joe, I know you're up there somewhere in Cape Cod. I'm going to send you this because I'm going to send another of the DVDs. They can auction off and hopefully raise some money for you in this battle against the killer of killers that we have today that's cruising through our population, doing great, great damage. So I love you. All of the 3 poems are acts of love for you, and I hope you keep my last poem, I Visit You, close to your heart.